here.
It took way too long for me to get here. I'm very sorry. I'm very behind schedule. But here we are, finally gonna fix this up and get this out. So let's begin.
Mr. McAuliffe, your time is up.
Okay. Right back where we were.
Mr. Youngkin.
Yes, ma'am.
Former President Trump has endorsed your campaign, and you've embraced his endorsement. This month, Trump raised questions about the integrity of this election, as he has about his and other elections without evidence.
Interesting.
He said, quote, "You know how they cheat in elections. The Virginia governor's election, you better watch it. You have a close race in Virginia, but it's not close if they cheat."
Where's she going with
My
this?
question, do you believe there has been significant fraud in previous Virginia elections?
Ooh,
And do
this could
you
go
agree
interesting places
with
because of
President
what Terry
Trump
said
that
about
Democrats may cheat in this
the
one?
2000 election, I
You
think?
have 60 seconds.
We'll see.
So I do not believe there's been significant fraud in Virginia elections, but I believe this is a democracy issue we're talking about,
What?
not a Republican issue, not a Democrat issue. Although I want to remind everybody that my opponent, when George W.
Yep.
Bush beat Al Gore, he stared into the screen and said, "They took the president from us." And he never acknowledged that President Bush was a legitimately elected president. I've said over and over again that Joe Biden's our president. I wish he wasn't. I wish he handled Afghanistan better. I wish we didn't have runaway inflation. But when he came to campaign with you, Terry, you embraced him. I think we need to invest in our election system, like Florida did after that hanging Chad incident, to the point where Florida's election system is trusted. It's trusted by all voters, and Virginians deserve that. And that's the kind of investment I'll make when I'm governor. I'll invest in making sure our voter rolls are updated. I'll ask everyone to show up to vote with a photo ID. And Virginians will trust our
Mr.
election
Youngkin,
system.
your time is up.
Interesting.
You did say you
Voter
didn't think
IDs.
there'd been significant fraud in previous elections, but do you agree with former President Trump that
I think that
Democrats
fraud's
may cheat
not a
in
problem,
this
though.
one?
Why would you want to
Just
tighten
yes
up
or no?
voter?
No.
Restriction.
I think we're going to have a clean, fair election, and I fully expect to win.
Thank you. Mr. McAuliffe, to watch your campaign ads,
That's actually a
Virginia
possibility.
voters
We'll
might
see.
well think Donald Trump is on the ballot. When you had a chance during this debate
Wait,
to ask
what? He's
Mr.
not even
Youngkin
gonna
a
respond about the George Bush
you
point?
mentioned Trump, as you have
Okay.
in many of your paid ads. My question, why have so many of your paid ads and your rhetoric mentioned Trump in an election focused on the people of Virginia and an election that presumably should be focused on your own proposals?
You could ask the exact
and what
same
you would
fucking
do
question
as
about
governor.
Youngkin.
You have 60 seconds.
Sure, because my opponent's a Trump wannabe. He's been endorsed by Donald Trump 3 times. He has said, "I'm honored to have his endorsement." He's quoted saying, "So much of the reason why I'm running is because of Donald Trump." That's his quote. So he's the one who's inserted Donald Trump here. And we know the damage that Donald Trump has done
And
to
we've
this
literally
country.
seen the attack ads
Look at the
run by
damage he's
Youngkin's
done on
campaign.
vaccines. If he had
This
taken
is such a
the
bizarre
crisis serious
question.
Much earlier, hundreds of thousands of Virginians or Americans would be alive today, and thousands of Virginians. So he's the one who's inserted him. He's the one who said, "So much of the reason I'm running is because of Donald Trump." He's following all Trump's policies. His economic advisor is Trump's economic advisor. So that's fair. But you know what? We're past all that. We've had a great 8-year run here. We have got, you look what's happened in this state over the last 8 years, open and welcoming Susan to everybody, hundreds of thousands of new jobs. We moved forward. We made our state open and welcoming. We're not going back. And the last thing
Mr.
I'll
McAuliffe,
say,
your time
he
is
spent
up.
his entire campaign talking
you.
about election integrity. It was
Thank
the
you.
only thing on
Thank
his
you, Mr.
website.
McAuliffe. I have
Election integrity,
Thank
really?
you, Mr. McAuliffe. I have the same follow-up question for each of you. Mr. Youngkin, you first. If the state certifies that you lost this election, even narrowly, will you pledge
This is fucking
tonight
insane that we even have to ask this
recognize Terry
question.
McAuliffe as the legitimate
But obviously both of them are going to say yes.
Absolutely. But I don't expect that to be the case. And the reason is that what Terry has done tonight is, once again, glossed over his real record. Over the last 8 years, let's just be clear, Virginia's created 44,000 jobs, not hundreds of thousands of jobs. And the states around us have created 6 to 8 times that amount.
Are you seriously saying we're doing
The
worse
states
than
around
North
us are winning,
Carolina and
Virginia
West
has been
Virginia?
losing, and that's the legacy that you left Virginia. Families are moving
Also, the
away
last 4
faster
years
than
are
they're
not
moving here
like
because there are not the
Terry
job opportunities they
McAuliffe.
want,
That's
and the cost of
Northam.
living is
Mr.
too
Youngkin, your
high.
time is up.
And that's
Which,
why
I mean,
my
yeah, I
day
guess they're
one
both
game
Democrats,
plan
but
Mr.
still, that's a
Youngkin,
weird thing
thank
to
you.
criticize for. And it's also a weird
Mr.
thing to brag
McAuliffe,
about
if
as
the
well.
state
from her.
certifies, I'm going to ask you a question
Okay,
right
great.
now. If the state certifies that you lost this election, even narrowly, will you pledge tonight to recognize
I love that it
Glenn
was just
Youngkin
an
as the
attack.
legitimately elected governor? You have 30 seconds.
Sure, absolutely. But we're going to win, and we're going to win because we had a great record when I was governor. He talks about his day one plan. His day one plan will be to unleash COVID because he doesn't believe we should mandate vaccinations. I remind you that when I was leaving office in April of 2017,
I definitely filmed these back to back, guys.
I was invited to his conference. He sat there, praised me, and said, "How did you do it? Governor, how did you create all those jobs? How did you make Virginia the great state?" Those were his words at his conference in April of 2017. I don't know what's happened over the course of the last 4 years, but he
Thank you,
praised
Mr.
me.
McAuliffe. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
McAuliffe.
you.
The next question will be posed by Candace Burns.
Ooh.
Right now, school districts in Virginia are exploring how to address race and gender in
Oh,
schools.
boy. Let's see.
Mr. McAuliffe, Virginia passed a law last year to better protect transgender and non-binary students, and the Department of Education issued expanded
I
policies.
can't
for
see how
public schools
Youngkin
to
can look
follow
better on this
starting
issue,
this
but
year. But
I
there
mean,
has been
we'll see.
backlash. In Loudoun County, teachers who disagree with rules filed a lawsuit against the school system, and some school boards have rejected or delayed adopting the state's policies altogether after an outcry from parents. Should school board members who are elected by voters be allowed to make their own policies that best fit their communities without facing penalties?
Yeah, I've always felt that school boards have the pulse of the local community. They should be making their decisions. I hate all of this divisiveness that is going on today. I hate to see our children being demonized today. I just really dislike it. You know, I'm talking about building this big new economy like I did before. I can't do it without the best education system in the country. And I remind everybody here, we are the #1 state for business, twice.
Wait, why is he
Last 2
talking
years, we're
about
the
this?
first
Just
state in
focus
America
on
to get it.
LGBT
We are the
issues.
#1
That's what he's
state in
really good
America
at.
today
I
for
don't know.
higher ed. We're
Strange
number 4
response, in my
America
opinion.
today for K-12. Those are facts. We're doing great, but Candace, we need to make sure that we're taking it to the next level. I have a real plan, not one that's going to cut 43,000 teachers. I have a plan, $2 billion. What I'll do is raise teacher pay above the national average for the first time ever.
That's a lot
I promise
local
every
level.
student in Virginia,
I mean, I'd have to look
broadband
into how much
within
of teacher
2
pay
years.
is
I'll make sure we
impacted by
diversify
national.
our teacher base.
But
I want a school community
I
that
mean,
would
I've
love and
literally
respect
seen
one
teacher
another. We're
units go up
teaching
in
the
like
best
local city
education.
council
I
meetings.
worked in a
So
bipartisan way with these Republican legislatures to make sure we were adding more
Mr. McAuliffe, your
science
time
and
has
math into our
expired.
K-12 courses. Worked in a bipartisan way.
Thank you. Thank you,
I mean,
Mr.
overall, not a terrible
Mr.
answer.
Youngkin, critical race theory,
Oh.
or CRT, is a term that has been controversial in school board meetings and caused confusion in terms of its definition.
Here we
To
go.
ban CRT, and in recent interviews you have said, quote, critical race theory has moved into all schools in Virginia, but you provided little proof for this claim. Virginia's learning standards do not mention critical race theory, and there is no statewide list of schools that teach CRT that would allow for an objective count. So how do you define critical race theory, and can you explain how you would ensure diversity, equity, and inclusion in schools?
Yeah, thank you for this most important question.
Very aggressive question against
Critical
him.
race theory has been in our schools for quite a while. And in fact, the first instance I can find is actually during Terry's time as governor, where the Board of Education ran a training session and in fact had a module teaching critical race theory in the classroom. You go to the Board of Education website
Which
today,
is?
and one of the recommended books is The Foundation of Critical Race Theory in Education. So to think that it's not in our schools is absolutely bogus.
What?
Now, the problem with critical race theory is that it teaches our children to actually view everything through a lens of race. In direct contravention to those immortal words of Dr. Martin Luther King,
Oh,
who
boy.
asked us to judge one another based on the content of our character, not the color of our skin. I want our children to thrive. Mr. McAuliffe wants to lower standards in the schools and press forward with the leave every child behind education
What the
philosophy.
fuck?
I will preside
Mr.
over
Youngkin,
the
your time is
largest
up.
education budget in the history
Okay,
of
Thank you,
Virginia.
Mr. Youngkin.
And
I'll
we're
look
gonna
into this a little bit
reestablish
more
a standard of excellence
because
in our
critical
your
race
time
theory
is
has never been something that I've cared too much to look into. But, you know, all that aside, let me give a little non-biased look into it. Well, that was a very good use of an hour. I am even more confused. than I was at the start, kind of. I mean, the one conclusion I can make is that the vast majority of people just don't really know what they're talking about with CRT. And considering I couldn't figure it out in an hour, that's actually understandable, because it shouldn't be this complicated to find out what's going on. But it is. So, I'm not going to talk too in depth about what should be or what CRT even is, because to be honest, it's a little difficult just slightly to find nonpartisan sources on this, or to like even understand it at all, which is very frustrating. I mean, if you're looking here, the amount of differing opinions is kind of insane, and the fact that people have just staked it out and they're going to defend their position no matter what, even though, I mean, the information, there's a reason this is an academic topic. You'd have to spend so long to like fully understand it. The one thing I can say, I don't know if it's a tentative CRT or not. I mean, it says it here, but who knows. But one thing that I would like to see in like history classes, it would be nice if we could see like celebrations of achievements of Americans like Jesse Owens. Like, that was an African American. That's something amazing. That should be like an inspiration to us all. Like, that's great. I mean, I've also seen other arguments that I've seen reports of this over and over and over again. I'll probably have it on screen as well. But like, some inner city schools, or even just schools around the nation, I mean, the education quality isn't that great. So if you take time away from that, then you're kind of fucking over the kids, because they really need to like actually have that mathematics and like literary skills that are, you know, key to existing in this world. And in some of these schools, like, that's not at all even close to adequate. So how much time can we really take away from that, or even afford to? So, I mean, that's as much of looking into this topic as I could do. Okay, back to the debate, I guess. I mean, is it fair to say that that's what critical race theory would do? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I wouldn't say that in a debate and say that my opponent was going to do that, but I mean, I don't know. Let's see how Terry responds, shall we?
Fired.
Mr. McAuliffe.
His education plan would cut 43,000 teachers.
It's not true.
And just, do your independent analysis on it.
How can you stand there
But I
and keep
really
saying that?
hate, like, he's talking about critical race theory, and it's not taught in our schools. But what I hate is this is a big dog.
Whoa.
I really hate it. It divides people. I'm about bringing people together. We have a great K-12. We're ranked 4th in the United States.
I mean, to be fair, the CRT is absolutely divided
Do a
people.
lot of work. We have schools, 50% of our schools are 50 years old. I was in Bristol the other day, 87-year-old school. We got to fix that. We got to rebuild. Now we have all this money from the federal government with the American Rescue Plan, which Glenn said was unnecessary.
Mr. McAuliffe, your time is up.
$14 billion to Virginia, $3 billion for schools. That's a good thing.
I mean, to be fair, at the very end of Youngkin's response, he was attacking
we're
the
almost out of
education
time, and we
plan,
want to ask one
or talking
final
about it.
question.
Can I just have 15 here real quick?
Okay,
I'll
15
go very,
seconds,
very, very
sir.
quickly. Mr. McAuliffe keeps mischaracterizing and, in fact, lying about my education program. We're going to preside over the largest education budget in the history of Virginia. He doesn't like that fact, so he makes up his own. The problem is that today...
All right, I don't have time to investigate this fully, but I actually plan to look into this later and make a video about it, because I do want to investigate that, but that kind of ties into education in general, so that's going to be way too long of a segment to insert here in a video that is way too long
there were
already.
strong emotions when the statue of Robert E. Lee...
Ooh, this is going to be a good one.
...was removed from a place of honor in Richmond on Monument Avenue. What went through your mind when you saw...
All right, now I'm hyped. This is one I can talk about.
Mr. McAuliffe, 30 seconds.
I was happy. They were
Based.
signs of division and hate. When I was governor, I always tried to make this Commonwealth an open and welcoming place. I leaned in. I banned the Confederate flag from the Virginia license plate. I don't want
It was
any
there?
symbols of hope or
That's actually kinda
racism
sad.
or division. We are only going to be successful.
Come on.
Is if we work together,
This is so
join
good.
together, get people vaccinated, invest in education, and recruit those
Okay,
jobs.
this is a little against the
Not gonna
topic. You
recruit
can
these
nail this
jobs when we
home.
have someone who wants
Thank you,
to
Mr.
ban
McAuliffe.
abortions
Mr.
and
Youngkin, 30
thinks
seconds.
election
What went
integrity is
through
the
your
big issue.
mind when you saw the statue of Robert E. Lee
Yeah.
come down?
What I thought was the statement I heard from Terry McAuliffe when he was governor, that the statue of Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson should be left alone. I felt the Supreme Court decision reflected the law. Locally, the decision was made to bring the statue down. That's where I believe these decisions should
Oh,
be.
an actual good answer.
I think that statue should be in a museum or on a battlefield so we don't airbrush away our history.
I mean, you could
know
always make
history.
the
We don't
argument
learn
of,
our
do you see any
history. We're
statues of
destined to
Hitler in
repeat.
Germany?
And I
But
think
people
this
still
is
know
the
who
room-
he
This is
is.
a way to bring all Virginians together.
But if you want to put it in a
Thank
museum,
you.
I'm fine with that.
Thank
But I
you.
wouldn't put that in a
Looking
battlefield.
back,
That's
like,
kind of
when
glorifying the
Time for these
Confederacy.
closing
And they did
statements.
kill
I know they're
American
gonna be
soldiers,
great. Each
which, you know,
candidate will
fuck
now
that.
have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And as a result of a coin toss, Mr. Youngkin
Okay,
will go first.
it's almost over, guys.
First,
Just
I'd like
bear
to
with me
thank
a
my
little bit
amazing wife,
longer, all
Suzanne.
right?
You make me better
What a
every
debate
day.
this
Thank
has
you
been.
for being here. Terry, thank you for being here.
You bet. Great to be with you.
My fellow Virginians, we live in turbulent and challenging times. My opponent wants to paint over that reality with myth-truths, with excuses, and with extreme positions. He wants to distract you from those issues that are most important to Virginians today as we come together to build a better day. How do we work and live through this pandemic? How do we provide a great education for our kids? How do we make our communities safe again? My opponent is very comfortable lying, but the numbers don't. Overtaxation and overregulation stalled out our economy when he was governor, and it never
What?
recovered. Today, we are ranked 44th in the nation in job recovery.
Okay, let's investigate that claim, shall we? Okay, so states whose unemployment claims are recovering the quickest. If we look here and try to find where Virginia's ranking and recovered most, since the start of COVID-19 crisis in terms of unemployment claims, let's find where Virginia is. Is it 44th? Well, it's 38th. I mean, that's pretty close, and that's definitely not a good place to be at. So let's look a little deeper into that. This source here, where I found this graph, it's talking about the rise in unemployment claims since the start of 2020 and how we're ranked horribly and all of this. So I wanted to look a little deeper into it, and I looked at the states that are recovering the quickest from COVID-19. Where does Virginia rank here? Oh, that's right. We're 22. It's just 44, 22, same thing, We're doing actually quite all right. And especially when you compare us to states like, New York and California, those economic powerhouses, we're doing better than them in COVID-19 recovery. I think we're doing all right, guys. I actually also wanted to delve a little further into our unemployment rates and see how bad we're actually doing. So I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, .gov, and I'm sure they have the information, right? And I went for Virginia in August, as most recent data as I could find, and I found 4%. Yeah. Now, if you don't know what that means, most economists generally agree that 4% unemployment is optimal. That's everyone that's working, or everyone that wants to work has a job for the most part, and companies are still actually able to find people who want to work. It's that optimal point where companies can find people to work, and people that actually want to work can find jobs. So we're doing all right at 4% unemployment. Yeah, interesting that. I also wanted to bring up how weird of an attack this is in general. A quick little note on that. Because, Terry McAuliffe was not governor during this time. It was Ralph Northam. I mean, I guess it's kind of a criticism on Democrats in general, but considering this is debate between Youngkin and Terry McAuliffe, I feel like it kind of should focus more on that. But considering both of them have made allusions to Donald Trump, I guess it's not all bad. Glenn Youngkin has no experience in government. I don't understand why people don't like people being qualified for a job. Like, if I'm going to hire someone, I would want them to, have experience. But I guess that's a selling point now, that you know nothing.
400,000 jobs and foster 10,000 new startups. We, in fact, are going to reestablish an expectation of excellence in our schools by investing the largest education budget in the history of Virginia. And we're going to make Virginia's government work for us, as opposed to telling us what to do.
Very well
My fellow
practiced
Virginians,
speech.
it's about leadership. Tonight, I ask for your vote. I ask you to partner with me to make Virginia the best place in America to live and work. and
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
I mean,
Youngkin. Mr. McAuliffe, you have 2
okay.
minutes.
Thank you. First, let me thank the Appalachian School of Law for having us here
Kinda
today.
standard.
Thank
It was
all
well
of you for being
practiced.
with us watching on TV.
Not really much else to say
I have my
about
wife here,
that.
Dorothy. I thank her,
Oh,
and through
for
her
now.
efforts, 13 million more meals were served to needy children my last year in office, and I thank her for that. Listen, COVID's tough. Most of the analysis say it'll be with us for another 18 months. You need someone with some experience who's done this job before to lead us through it. When I was governor before, I came in with an economy in chaos. Got to work, created 200,000 new jobs, personal income went up 14%. I did it by working in a bipartisan way. I worked in a bipartisan way on transportation.
To be fair, he was kind
on
of forced
education,
to,
on job
but he did
creation,
do
and so
that.
many
I
other
mean,
issues.
that's
On
not really
veterans.
a
First
lie.
state to end veteran homelessness when I was governor. Very proud of that. We worked together. I have 20 big plans. If you go to my website.
That is true.
20
If you go to
plans of
Terry
what
McAuliffe's
I'd like to
website,
do.
you can
Real
actually
plans.
see how he plans on
And you
doing
look
these
at
things.
education, $2
Well,
billion
Youngkin
investment.
doesn't.
We've got to pay our teachers above
But
the
then again,
national average
Youngkin
for the
has
first time
absolutely
ever.
no fucking
We've got to make sure that
experience, so
every
he just
child has
promises
access to
whatever he can.
broadband. On healthcare, I want to lower premiums,
Yay.
lower drug price. As governor, I'll get us a
I
section
mean, yes, these are also
1332 waiver. I'll
promises.
stand
I
up our own
acknowledge that.
marketplace, Virginia.
But
And
Terry
we'll be able
McAuliffe
to
has
bring those
experience,
premiums
and that
down.
counts for a lot, and he can draw
It's
on his
working together
legacy,
on these
while
big
Youngkin
issues,
can't.
why so many Republicans have
In
actually
any
endorsed
capacity,
it.
because he hasn't done any
Former
government
delegates.
job.
Bill Kristol, one of the
And for
most
some reason, people
conservative
like that.
writers in America. Why? Terry
Oh, the
has the
video's buffering.
experience of getting
Well, that's
this done.
embarrassing.
And that's what we need
Cut.
here
Oh, there we
in
go.
Virginia, because we've got tough times ahead, and we can't go with a candidate who is too extreme. He's a Trump wannabe. He's endorsed by Donald Trump 3 times. He said he was honored
could
to
also
have his
just say that,
endorsement.
like, he has no
wants to ban
experience.
abortions here in Virginia. The number one issue he talked about the entire campaign was election integrity. The big issue I'm talking about are jobs, economic development. That's how you grow, investing in education, lifting up healthcare. He's gone as far to say that so much of the reason I'm running is because of Donald Trump. Well, let me be clear to all you in Virginia.
Thank you, Mr.
I'm
McAuliffe.
running for you.
Thank you, Mr.
very much,
McAuliffe.
and please vote.
Thank you both. That concludes this illuminating debate. Our thanks to the Appalachian
I mean,
School
yeah,
of
it's
Law
referencing
for
that
the
ad that I
Terry
already
McAuliffe
covered, that was
and
dog
Youngkin.
shit.
On behalf of Candace, Bob, and myself, our thanks also to the voters of Virginia for watching and for voting. Early
Well, that
voting
was-
begins tomorrow.
That
and
was worth
Election
all those
Day
hours of my
is
life
November
covering
2nd.
this.
Good night.
I mean, if you ever get to this point, I hope you enjoyed, because it was certainly something. Terry Youngkin kind of surprised me. I expected him to be a bit more extreme. I never looked into a lot of his stuff, but to be fair, if you ever go on his website, you can't really see a lot of things, because he hadn't had policies for so long, and when he did, he doesn't really have like proposals or what actually he would do. Well, that's the complete opposite in Terry McAuliffe's case, and he's had that for a while, and you can see detailed proposals. I mean, based on that alone, I would support Terry McAuliffe. Kind of obvious, though. I mean, I guess a little self-reflection of my coverage. I think for the most part, I tried to be non-biased. I mean, there is stuff that you can absolutely call out and criticize Terry McAuliffe for. I would never say that that's not the case, because, I mean, if you just look at the legacy of Terry McAuliffe video, I have him in there, so I don't have to reference anything specific right now. I mean, yeah, it's just Youngkin, I'm not a fan of, and his policies not really a fan of either, and that's all I have to say. I mean, thanks for watching. If you got this far, I appreciate it. This has been a wild ride, but I've been keeping up with this YouTube channel far longer than I thought I would, and these videos, they take less time than the big projects that I work on. I'm working on that part 2 of that French Algeria video. That's a monster. But yeah, thanks for watching.